Hello and welcome to the next edition of the BobCAD-CAM webinar series. Today's topic is Getting Started 2D Open Q&A. Now, in today's webinar, we're going to go over some of the common getting started topics. This is an open Q&A webinar for the BobCAD-CAM version 30. As you know, my name is Al DiPaolo. I'm the voice of the Bobcat After Dark video series. You can find me on Instagram at Al DiPaolo, or you can also join the conversation in the many Bobcat groups that are springing up all over the place on Facebook. So what are we going to talk about? Today is an open Q&A. Really talking about getting started with 2D, some of the basics to help everybody out here. We'll talk about things like job setup, stock wizard, post processors and tools. We'll talk about drilling, standard drilling, using points or arcs or cylinders, drilling to multiple depths. We'll look at profiling, standard profiling, ramping, side roughing. Maybe we'll get into some pocketing, like an offset pocket or an open pocket or an adaptive pocket. And as always with BobCAD, you can expect fewer steps, better cuts, and more profit. Okay, guys, so give me just a second to get my screen set up here. While we're waiting to switch over the software, why don't you go ahead and in the question area, just let me know where you're from and whether you're a BobCAD customer or not, maybe a little information about your shop, the kind of work you're doing. If you have any questions you want to fire off right away, we can get that list going too. I want to wish everybody a happy holiday season, a Merry Christmas. This is the Christmas week. I hope you got to spend some time with, hey Charlie, you showed up. I hope you got to spend some quality time with your family and friends. I know we all work quite a lot of hours, and it definitely is beneficial to spend that time with your family when you can. I know we were back to work the next day. I'm sure a lot of you guys were as well. So, sometimes that's just how it goes. So I want to thank Larry for showing up, David, Ron, I'm sorry, the Belgium hobbyist, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, Renewed maybe? Thank you for showing up, Thomas. Thank you, everybody. Ron, Dustin, Irwin, John, David, Clive, you guys are really, I mean, this is the reason why I do this, is to communicate with you guys directly. So, Scott Conti showed up. Very good. So, so thank you again so much for sharing your time with me today. Again, today is an open Q&A, getting started for 2D machining. We got David here, Joe, another David from St. Peter. David's in, he's a snowbird. Do you guys know what a snowbird is? Here in Florida, we get a lot of those. Donald's been using BobCAD since the late 80s. Uh-oh, you might have some tricks on me. Okay, so first off, it's really important that everybody understands the purpose of this webinar is to answer your questions about the software. So questions that you guys have about anything about the software, just go ahead and fire it away. There's a little question and answer dialog box. I'm not going to actually answer the question in the dialog box. I'll answer it out loud if I can get to it. If I'm unable to get to it, you will get an email of this webinar recording, and I'll also do a question and answer. So any questions that I wasn't able to get to, I will answer them in that document. Okay, so again, today's topic is getting started with 2D machining. Let me see if I can pull up a file here. I have a couple of files that I want to run. That's not the one that I want to talk about just yet. That's not the one I want to talk about either. That's probably a good one too, but let's start with the pocket one. Nope, that's not it either. Usually I number these things to make it a little bit easier for me. Okay, so this is the file that I wanted to start with here, and this has to do with some pocketing. There is a question that came in here from let's see. Dave's got a question. Looking looking on the post setup download. I can't find the post setup for Linux CNC. Do you have this available? Dave, the Linux CNC post may have some scripted functionality in it. I believe I answered this on Facebook. If I didn't, if you are looking for a post and you don't find it on our website, not all of our posts are hosted on our website, so you can email support and they will help you out with that. David had a question, or let's see, Thomas, pocketing an O-ring with a flat, on a flat surface. Not sure exactly what we're looking at there, but we'll get into that in just a second. Duncan is saying that I have no sound. If you have no sound, you have to check the control panel, because that's where we'll see the sound. So I'm going to get started with some pocketing things. First off, there's you guys can raise your hand as attendees. You can raise your hand. So by raising hands, you know, how many of you know how to pocket all of these shapes here? Know the pocket tool paths that you would use in order to do this. We have an inside pocket, we have some open pockets, we have another inside pocket and another open pocket. Do you guys know how to do this? John says he does. Okay, good. You know, these are some of the basic topics. It looks like a lot of you do, but it also looks like a lot of you don't. So I want to kind of go through that to begin with. So what I'm going to do is just take, you know, all of these models here, and I'm going to put them onto their own layer. So we're just working with this initial file here. Okay, so we have this initial file here. Rich says he's still learning. I think we're all learning. We're going to run through, you know, kind of just setting up a job here. So we're going to do new job, milling job, 3-axis machine. We're going to run the stock wizard. Okay, the workpiece would be your part model that you would want to send to simulation. I'm going to skip that. I generally do. Your stock types, you have lots of stock types. We're going to choose rectangular. We're going to go ahead and just leave the stock size based on what we see here, and then we'll set our 0 over to this top corner here. Okay, so when we're dealing with this type of pocket, I mean, we could do a zigzag pocket, we could do an offset pocket. There's a lot of different pocket types. So let's get in here. There's actually 7 different pocket types. So we'll go mill 2-axis. Okay, we're going to go to our machining strategy. We're going to jump right into pocketing. Okay, we'll set our tool size. We'll use a 1/2-inch end mill. And then we're going to look at our pocketing patterns. So we have a zigzag pocket, we have an offset pocket in, we have an offset pocket out, we have an advanced pocket, we have an adaptive pocket, there's a spiral pocket, and then there's rest pocketing. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is just zigzag pocketing. So we'll choose zigzag pocketing. All the other settings we're going to leave just the way they are. We'll go back to our geometry selection here. I'm going to go ahead and select this surface. Okay, so in the version 30, if you're coming from a newer version of the software, or I'm sorry, an older version of the software, you may not have been able to just select a boundary like this. I can pick this surface, and BobCAD's going to find that boundary for us. Okay, we have our profile chain. This arrow here, this indicates where the tool would start from. So we do have the ability to reverse that direction. That would be the direction of cut if we were doing a finish pass. And we also have the ability to move that position as well. So if we want to move that to a different location, we can do so. All right. So in this example, I'm not too concerned with that. As far as the depth, even though we were able to pick up the surface, in order to define the depth, we'll choose pick bottom. We'll go ahead and just grab one of these edges here. It will measure it for us. We're going to choose OK, and then we're going to compute. All right, so that gives us a zigzag pocket. A zigzag pocket is basically going to move back and forth, kind of like mowing your lawn. We can come in here and choose back plot. In back plotting, we'll see our tool and our holder, and we'll be able to step through the routine to see exactly what's going on. Now, zigzag pocketing is definitely a classic type toolpath. There are some benefits to a zigzag pocket. Generally, you can get away with a greater step over. So when we look at our parameters here, or I'm sorry, our pattern. When we look at our step over, generally with a zigzag pocket, you can get away with a more aggressive step over or greater than 50% of the cutter. Another option with the zigzag pocket is to do a profile either before or a profile after. A lot of customers, you know, it's going to depend on your application, but if you're in the woodworking market and you're dealing with wood, a lot of times what we'll do is a profile before while there's a lot of material there to clean up the walls, and then we'll remove the bulk of the material, you know, within the pocket, and this helps with your islands not chipping. It's just a workflow that helps with your islands not chipping, okay? So in our example, we're gonna do no profile. Again, you can change your angle of cut, so we can do a 50% step over, we can run it down the length of the part, we can run it across the part, or you can come in here and put this at any angle that you want and compute, and here you can see we get our nice clean zigzag pocket, okay? So that's the first one. If we come in here and we edit this, there is another type of pocket, so you have an offset pocket in and you have an offset pocket out. So these two, even though I count them as two, it's really kind of one. Don't have the profile before or after in V5. Mike, you should have that option. That's been in there since a number of different versions, so I'd have to look into that, but you should see that in V5 or V6 or V4 or V3 to even all the way back to V1, I believe that was in there. So I'll have to check on that myself, but that option should definitely be in there for you. Okay, so you got offset in, offset out. These are essentially the same routine. If we look at it, an offset in is going to start, or I'm sorry, this is offset out, so it's going to start on the inside and then it's going to work its way out, okay? And then if we do this again and we edit this and we choose our pattern and we say offset in, this will essentially be the same path. It's just going to start on the outside of the part, okay, and work its way through. So, you know, one of the things, like when you're looking at this, and I've run into this myself, I've requested to have like the tool holder removed from the backplot option. Hopefully that will make it in there. But a trick that you can use, or I find myself doing, is if I look at this from a front view, I'm seeing all the tool holder, so it's hard to tell where the tool is. If you look at it from a bottom view and you go to a shaded mode, it makes it a lot easier to see where that tool is. So as you step through the routine, you can see where the tool is going. So again, this is working from the outside in. This is a traditional type of pocket routine, so we can see exactly what's going on here. Now, when you're dealing with an offset type pocket, you do generally want your step over to be less than 50% of the cutter. The main reason is as you get greater in your step over here, you tend to have stand-ups or leftover material that the pocket cycle wasn't able to get to. Okay, so you got pocket in, pocket out. The next one that we have here is we have an advanced pocket. When we go to advanced pocket, this is where you can do like an open style pocket, and we'll go through some examples for that. You know, the other one here we have is this adaptive roughing. This is your high-speed tricordial machining. A lot of different CAD-CAM vendors call it different things. We call it adaptive. And, you know, generally you're doing twice diameter cutting here, and you have a shallow, you might be 10, 15, 25% step over. So this will give you that tricordial, you know, smooth engagement style cutters. If you're an old school machinist, this is going to look really weird to you. What I generally recommend here is use the same settings that you would use for an offset style pocket to begin with, the same speeds and feeds, and go and run it at the machine. At first, you'll notice that it will take longer because there's more area that it's cutting, but you'll notice you'll be able to turn up your speeds and feeds and be able to do, be able to cut a lot faster by using this particular strategy here. Okay, so are there any questions about this first pocket routine here, this pocket geometry, and some of the pockets that that I've gone through so far? Any questions? If there is, go ahead and fire away. If not, let's move on to the next shape. Okay, so let's bring these all up here. Let's go to this one. Okay, so I'm just going to isolate it. I'm going to put it on its own layer, and we'll blank everything out. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to run my stock wizard again for this part geometry. Okay, so I blanked out the other part, and it will pick up this part geometry. I'm going to move my 0 over as well. So we got our 0 set up, and then I'll remove my geometry and recompute. So we're basically at square one now. Okay, for this particular routine, we have a couple of islands in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this bottom face again. Okay, we're going to come in here. Let's edit the feature. Let's see here. Feature settings, pick bottom. We'll grab the bottom. Okay, we're going to come in here and we're going to let's do an adaptive routine. We have a 1/2-inch cutter. Let's make the cutter a little bit bigger. Let's make it a 750. Okay, and we'll recompute. And what we're going to find is that doing this pocket, we're not going to be able to get to all the material. Okay, so this is common as well. You generally want to use as large of a cutter as possible, but as we use a larger cutter, you can see that we're unable to get into certain areas of the part. Okay. And actually, we can even restrict that more based on some settings within the software, you know, whether you're doing 2D machining or 3D machining. I believe the 3D will have a minimum curvature radius, and so will the 2D. And what this is saying is the smallest radius that, you know, as it loops around that it can do. So if I make this like a 1/2 inch, for instance, and I recompute that, you're going to see that it actually wasn't able to fit anywhere. Okay, so that was too big. Let me drop it down to maybe 125 and recompute, and we should see that, you know, it's not able to get into some of these areas because we told it the smallest radius that it's able to generate. Okay, so that's what this minimum curvature radius is used for. This one right here, the default value is pretty small, giving it the ability to get into these smaller areas. Okay, so that's just like a little more information about that particular feature. But what we want to do is, it's really common to use a larger tool to clear out the majority of the material. Maybe we're not doing an adaptive routine. Maybe we are doing an offset type routine where we're using a larger tool to clear up the majority of the material, but we want to come in and now target where the larger tool wasn't able to get to. Okay, so this is where we're talking about rest machining. Okay, so with rest machining, we can come into our machining strategy, we can add another pocket cycle. With this pocket cycle, we can drop our tool size down, and then when we start looking at our patterns, we'll go to advanced pocket, and then we can say rest machining. Okay, and from here, the software will pick up the previous tool that was used, and then you are able to, you know, just target where that leftover material is. After you dial in your tool paths, multiple features. Richard, can you kind of get into that a little bit more? Okay, so again, this one here, this is the rest machining, so you can see we use the larger tool to remove the bulk of the material, and then we're using the smaller tool to clean up where the other tool wasn't able to fit. So I'll run this one through a simulation so we can see that graphically and see what else that we need to do. Okay, so Mike's got a question here. Can you Precall Tools? We have a Haas VF3. Absolutely, Mike. You definitely can Precall Tools within BobCAD. If you give me just a second, we'll pick this up. So this is the larger tool coming through and clearing the majority of the material. And then we're going to change our tool. We'll go to a smaller tool, and this is coming in here and cleaning up where the larger tool wasn't able to fit. Now, of course, you could use different depths of cut. but you should be able to see how we were able to clean that up. Now, some of you may be saying, well, why is the tool red? The tool's red because with my license I have machine simulation, and with machine simulation that 3D model exists, so it's showing that it's colliding. Now even if you don't have machine simulation, it may show up that way as well. You could change the checking group, collision checking group, or you could delete the solid models for the machine simulation as to avoid it. The other way to do it is just to change your machine setup. You can go to your work offset and just add the thickness of your part to Z, and then that way the tool won't be running into the table. The work offset is how you move the part around in machine simulation. Okay, so now you can see that it's above the table, so when we run this through, it's no longer colliding with the table. All right, so that's a little bit about rest machining. Now let's get into your post. Now, I'm going to go through some more pockets here, but I think let's see here. Mike had a good question about pre-calling tools. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a Haas post here. These Haas posts either come installed with the software, or they have it right on the website. So let's post up our code. And what you're going to see right now is we have T1M06, so we call the first tool, but really what we're looking to do is stage the next tool. So whatever, a little rough on the entry. Yeah, Charlie, I'm more so concerned with the path, not the entry or the aggressiveness of the tool there, but fair enough. Okay, so we got our T1M06, but really what we want to do is pre-call the next tool. If we scroll down here, you're going to see that this one says T2M06. So really this is like T1M06 T2 is what we're looking for. Now, you guys may or may not know that there is complete documentation built into the software here. So what I'm going to do is just open up this directory here. This is BobCAD data version 30 and posts. And then in here, there's this folder called documentation, and this has all of the variable calls. We can go to the legacy one, and we're going to do post variables, mil post variables. I'm just going to open up this this PDF here, and this has all the variables for the post. So this has all the variables for the post, and so what you can do is find the pre-call text. So if we scroll down in here, let's see here, line numbers, subcalls, feature names, tool label, let's see, M tool, what am I looking for? M codes, CAN cycles, miscellaneous, okay. It's funny, I don't remember the variable off the top of my head, but here it is. Okay, tools. So you got output the current tool number with prefix, output the current tool number without prefix, first tool with prefix, next tool with prefix. So I think we want, I think just next tool. Let's see. Next underscore tool. So we're going to come in here. We'll edit our post. So the post is just the text file, so we can come in here and go into our Haas and choose edit. Okay, there's a couple blocks that represent the tool call block. So our standard start a file, we're going to do this. So enter, tab, n, comma, and then next underscore tool is the variable. We're going to save the post. We're going to post the code again, and then we'll see, yeah, we needed the prefix in there, so we'll add a prefix on the end. But you can see how it has T1M06, and then we just want to stage it with a T2. So let's see here, what is it? Prefix. So we'll just add an underscore prefix. Save. Post it again. Did I spell it wrong, really? With prefix. Okay. So this is underscore with underscore prefix. Save and post. And then now you can see T1M06T2. Does that make sense? Who was it? Where are you at? Mike. Hopefully that makes sense for you. That's how you do that. Now I did it only in one block here. Okay, so I did it only in the standard start number 2. You would also want to add this same block here to your tool change block as well. So your number 3, we would put it down there as well. So that way you have it when you change tools. The other thing that I really like to do too is I like to number my tool changes and not number every line. So that when you're looking at your program, I don't want my tool numbers on every block here. I just want them at my tool calls. You know, there's other things you can do in here too, like this safety block of code here, I only have at the start. But when you look at my tool change here, I don't have a safety block in here. If you wanted to add a safety block in there, you could do so. That stops the machine and allows you to change a tool. I'm not sure what you're asking there, Richard. T1 M6 would change the tool. T2 would stage it for the next tool. So when you have a carousel, and it may not be T2, it could be T8, it'll get it ready to change. So I don't know if they call it a quick tool change or staging or whatever they call it, but that's what we do there. Erwin said, please show us the backplot button. The backplot button, if you go to your feature, Erwin, and you right click, you're not going to get the backplot button. Okay, if you go to one of your operations and you right click, that will give you the backplot button. So that's how that works there. So you go to the operation and then you choose backplot, and now you have backplot. So hopefully you answer that. And yeah, Charlie, I was definitely aware of that. The other thing, Charlie, is I don't know why you don't have staging working on your posts. I mean, you have the variable there, but I don't know what's scripted into yours, so you would have to look at that. Let's see what else we have. Hey, Mike, I'm glad that worked out for you. It looked to me that it was conventional cutting. I mean, I'd have to look at the pattern again, but offset in, offset out is either from the outside in or the inside out. When you're in the feature itself, so if you look at offset in, you can say whether it's climb cutting or conventional cutting by this option here. So hopefully that answers your question there. Let's see here. If it's hard, I can't, if you're asking a question, try to ask it all in one line so I can read it together. Okay, so Richard is asking, what Richard is asking is, you know, once you get this part programmed here, you know, if you need to run this same part in multiple vices, how do you do that? Okay, so currently we do have a pattern function, but when we do a pattern, so I could add toolpath pattern, and I could say do an array or a translate or a rotate or points. Okay, if I do just an array, and let's say I say the next one's 10 inches apart and there's one copy, what it will do is make a copy of this toolpath 10 inches apart. So that's how you can make copies of what it is, but that is still within one work offset. As of now, we do not have a pattern for multiple work offsets. So how would I take this part here and then program it in another vise, the same exact part in another vise? What you would currently have to do is select your model, make a copy of it 10 inches down as such. Let me undo. Not scale, make a copy, reselect. Let me select this thing. Okay, so I'd have to make a copy of it. Once I had a copy of it made, then what I could do is create another setup. So I could do additional functions, insert setup. From that setup, I can edit its origin, so I can pick where that origin would be. I can set what that work offset would be, okay? All right, so now I have that. And then in order to get this same toolpath that I have here with its settings to here, what I would do is I would copy, paste. So that copies the feature and its settings. I can say use the same depth values, okay? I can come in and select that face there that I want to work with, okay? Now I do, because this feature was in machine setup 1, it's going to be set to 54. This one is going to be machine setup 2 is going to be 55 or whatever the number is. So what I have to do is edit this posting and change that work offset to number 2 and then compute, and then now I have that same toolpath that I had in the first setup. I now have it in the second setup. There is quite a bit of logic that goes into the tool calls and the posting order when you're dealing with multiple setups. So we haven't optimized that at this point. It is something that has been requested to post the same job in multiple setups. The other way that you could handle that would be to use the advanced posting tab and, you know, just take your routine and save it as a sub and then call it. You basically can build in your own functionality for that. It's just not an in-the-box feature for it, okay? All right, so hopefully that answers that question, or let me know if it did. Someone asked, John asked, why does the software crash a lot? That's really a good question. And, you know, the funny thing is that the software itself is actually, it's pretty stable, but there are definitely things that will cause crashes in the software. Some of the things that are going to cause crashes in the software are going to be like system compatibility, memory, RAM, and that kind of stuff, okay? So if you're getting a lot of crashes, make sure your system doesn't just meet the system requirements, that it exceeds the system requirements, and not like the minimum, the recommended. The other thing is your workflow, the steps that you take when using the software. You know, if you're click happy and you're not patient, you know, that can cause problems for the system. So what I recommend that you do if you're having a lot of crashes and you're really having difficulty with the software, I do recommend you contact support and let them know what's going on. Hey, Erwin, if you're still here, great to see you in. Hopefully I'm not going too fast for you. Erwin's a good customer of ours out of New Jersey. I actually happen to be from New Jersey as well. And he's picking up the software. I can't remember how old he is, but he's getting up there. So good to see you in today's webinar. And don't forget to remind me to slow down, okay? So very good. Jason, hey, thank you so much for showing up here today. Okay, so before I do anything else, I want to talk about some resources, okay? So a lot of questions that you guys have is, you know, a lot of them are common questions. Some of them are new. And look, we have different users. We have new users and we have more advanced users. Something that we've done here recently is with the Facebook groups and communities, okay? So what you guys can do here is you can just go to Facebook and you can search BobCAD group, okay? And when you go to BobCAD group, there's the BobCAD After Dark group, there's the Texas group, there's the India, there's the United Kingdom, and there's actually a new BobCAD-CAM group as well. This is a great place for you to share with ideas with like-minded people. I recommend the After Dark group, even though I'm an admin in most of these. This group, I have a lot of good customers in here, lots of really good feedback, so I definitely recommend you guys participate in this group because there's really good information and some new users, some more advanced users, so that's a great resource for you. That's number one. The second resource that I have for you guys is YouTube. YouTube is really very useful. If you just search BobCAD on YouTube, you can get to the BobCAD YouTube page, which is this one right here. When you go to the BobCAD YouTube page, what you can do is search videos right here, and when you go to videos, this is going to be in order of the most recent videos that have been done. The other thing you can do too is you can go to playlists, and there's things like quick tips or the webinars, etc. So that's another great resource for you guys. If you're not utilizing either of those, I definitely recommend you do so and subscribe and participate in both those groups. So all right, so what I want to do, so I did I did 2 pockets here. Let me get rid of this other setup for a second. And I want to get into some of these other pockets, okay? So let's, additional functions, delete setup, okay. And then this one, let's delete. Okay, so we did, you know, a regular pocket. Let's see what else we got here. This one here I want to go through. There's probably some good stuff here. So I'm going to take this one and put it onto its own layer, and we'll blank everything else out. From here, I'm going to run the stock wizard again. Okay. I'm going to set my origin at this top corner here, and I'll say OK. I'll edit this feature. Let's get rid of the rest pocketing for a second. Let's go to just an offset in or offset out is fine. All right. Finish. Let me remove, reselect. I'm going to pick this face here, and then I'll compute, and we'll get some weird tool path. Okay, so this is the next type of pocket that I want to talk about that's really common when you have bosses and you know, open style where you want to come in from the outside. I have this shoulder here that I need to machine. I have this face that I need to, you know, to clear to leave this boss standing. So how do you accomplish that stuff? Okay, so you know, the thing is when you go to do your geometry selection, I'm picking this surface here, but it doesn't know that it can come in from the outside. Okay, even when I change it to the right toolpath, because not all toolpath will do an open pocket. Right? So, and yes, Charlie, that's exactly where we're going. So when we do this, you have zigzag, you have offset in, you have offset out. Those are not open pocket routines, okay? When you go to advanced pocket, an advanced pocket is an open pocket routine. It can come in from the outside. Now, if I just compute this the way that it is, I'm not going to get an open pocket. And the reason why I'm not going to get an open pocket is the software doesn't know the dotted lines, okay? So, the software doesn't know where the stock is. The way that it knows where the stock is by a dotted line. A dotted line tells it it's an open area, okay? Now, if you BobCAM customers, V6, V5, if you did an open pocket like this and the stock was up to the edge, it would actually know that it was an open pocket, okay? In the standalone, the V30, V29 or earlier, we use Wireframe and we use a dotted line. So how do we do this? Well, what I'm going to do is just create a new layer, and then I'm going to extract the wireframe for this surface. So I'll go to Utilities, Extract Edges, Single, okay? I'll pick on the face that I'm working with. I'll hit my space bar. I'll cancel out of it, and then I'll hide this model. What that does is gives me the wireframe, okay? Now in our example here, I want to trim these two together, okay? Then I want to select the stuff I want to get rid of. So we have this area here. I will chain select the outside shape and then just turn it to a dotted line. By turning it to a dotted line, now the software knows where the open area is. So I can remove, reselect my geometry here. Okay, I'll recompute my toolpath, and now you can see it's coming in from the outside. All right, so that's how you do open pocketing, is with a dotted line boundary. If I want to do the same thing for this lower edge here, I would do the same exact thing. I would come in, add a new layer, Utilities, Extract Edges, Single. I'll pick this surface, spacebar, turn these other things off. Now, when I'm doing this, I have all this toolpath in front of me that's in the way, so I want to hide that as well. So I'm just going to blank my toolpath so I don't see it. I'll come in here and select these two lines, and I'll turn them from a solid line to a dashed line. Now, if I want to use the same tool and I want to use the same settings as my first pocket, I can take this pocket, copy, paste. I'm going to say no on my depth values. I will reselect our geometry here, and then what I need to do is set the depth. So I'll come in, edit, pick bottom, I'll pick this edge, and we'll recompute. And then what that will do is give me an open pocket for that one, and then we have an open pocket for this one. Okay, so that is a little bit about open pocketing. Charlie's got a, I'm not trying to know it all, just trying to help. Zigzag is a must in my opinion. For open pocketing, you don't have Zigzag as an open pocketing style. What you have for open pocketing would be an offset style. You can tell it to do two-directional cutting by going to the cut direction and unchecking that, and then that makes it two-directional cutting. If you wanted it to be a, okay, just two-directional. Yeah, you can do two-directional just by going under your pattern, and instead of it making it one way, you can make it two-way cutting. Okay, so does that make sense, Charlie? I think so. Okay, cool. Yes, all right, good. Let me see here. Way faster, definitely. There's another question here from Rich. The way another program does this is to do a roughing code file, stop, tool change, then to do a finish code on the same file. So are we talking about multiple work offsets there, Rich? If that's what we're talking about, just provide as much detail in the questions here, and I will do a write-up on that for you in the Q&A. And if you have some valuable information, I can put that in with the feature request so we can help get that out to you sooner. Let's see, Joe has a question. I've had issues trying to coordinate my part origin with my vise location. I do not have the ability to zero my X or Y, but I know the exact position of the stock edge in the vise. So I'm not sure exactly what you're getting to here. When I look at my stock, you know, that's my material there. Okay, so when I put this in a vise, you know, or I clamp it to the table or what have you, you should be able to pick wherever, you should be able to indicate whatever zero you have. So Joe, can you tell me what machine you're running on? And then I'll get into that one some more. Let's see, Rob has a question. In version 30, when I post code or save, as it's not viably posting or saving to my thumb drive, how do I fix? Okay, so when you're posting, you know, there's a couple of things to do. What I generally do is I go up to my job here, I right-click and I choose Post. And the reason why I do that is because I want to see a preview of the code. I switch between a lot of different post processors. I want to look at the code. Generally, I may be doing some formatting. So this is why I would do this. But for you as a user, if you want to post, what I would do is choose Post and Save As. Now, when you do Post and Save As, you have access to your computer's directories. What I would recommend you do, let me see, is this Rob? Okay, what I would recommend you do, Rob, is post it to your local, like post it to your computer first before trying to just post it to your thumb drive. Okay, so what I mean by that is actually save it to a directory that is on your computer first, then move the file to your thumb drive. That is what I would recommend. If you're having some kind of issue trying to save directly to the thumb drive, save it to your computer local first and then move it to the thumb drive. So if you haven't tried that, try that, and I think you'll see that that actually works for you. Let's see here. Michael had a question. Earlier versions had a backup that saved your work periodically. Does version 30 have anything like that? Okay, yeah, you do. You can go to help, or I'm sorry, you can go to preferences, default, and there is an option here to, it's the auto save. You can turn auto save on and then you can set an interval. I personally don't recommend the auto save option. It's okay, but what I find works better is just using a save at a milestone method. Okay, so every time you get to a milestone, then that is when you save, versus having the software just save automatically on you. I like to be in control, but if you're looking for that option, that's where you'll find it. Okay, so that is under Preferences, Setting Default. Setting Default will set the default for new files. So all your new files, when you come in here under System, you can say Turn On Auto Save, and you can set the interval, and then that way the software will save automatically based off of a time period. So hopefully that answers that question there. Let's see what else we have as far as questions go. When doing simulation, I get a comment, collision between tool, flute, part, and stock. What do I need to do to correct this? I guess it depends on what you're simulating. Okay, so if I get in here and I do a simulation, on this one, I'm already above the part. You have a report here, and this is probably where you're talking about. Dave, is this report, and with this report, it's saying that a collision between the flute and stock have occurred. So what can you do? Well, first off, when it reports it, it will give you some information. You would definitely want to look at your job and see exactly what was going on. You know, the other thing you can do is in here under options, let's see, in here under options, you have some different pop-up notifications that you can turn on. You have, you know, some different settings for your simulation. Enable workpiece collision checking and proximity alert when material mode is entered. I believe if you turn this one on or off, that will probably get rid of the error that you're getting, because I don't think the error that you're getting is actually a collision. So, you know, if you can do a follow-up on that and shoot me the file that you're working on, Dave, I'd like to take a look at it, and then we can work through that together, but it should be really easy to clean up. Okay, so there are some settings. First off, you can put your report on, and it will tell you things that are happening. Like, let me go ahead and let me close out of here for a second, and then let me go to my work offset and turn this back to 0. I believe this is actually what you're dealing with. If we go to simulation again, okay, what's going to happen here, let me put my report on, and when I step through this, warning, collision checking was not performed during simulation position changes. Okay, so I don't know exactly what that is. This one's saying collision between tool and table, and as you click through these, it actually shows you where the collision may be. Okay, so if I click through, it will show you where the collision may be. It's going to show you the range that it's within. You know, and here you can clearly see the tool is colliding with the table. Now, you may not have machine simulation, but there may be a model in the background that the software is still checking against. So that's why I kind of need to see the part file that you're working with to see if that is what it is or what it isn't. There are 2 remedies for this. One of the things that you can do is, if I go to, let me see, the machine here, the machine has these checking groups. You don't actually set it here, but the CC is your checking groups. So what you can do is turn off a checking group against the tool against the table, which is generally where that problem is coming from. So we can do default, current settings, machine definition, and then here you have your CC, your checking groups, collision checking. So these are your available items. Items in group 1 will be collision checked against items in group 2. So the tool is being checked against the workpiece, the table, the stock, and the fixture. If we didn't want the tool to be checked against the table, we could move the table out of that group, so that way the tool isn't being checked against the table, and that should handle your problem there, or what I think to be your problem. The other way to accomplish this would be to actually go into the directory for the machine. Let me see if I can, give me a second here. you could actually go into the directory for the machine, machine sim. Okay, so in here, when we get in here to machine sim, you could go to the machine that you're using, the BC3X mill, and then these are the STL files for like the table. So you could come in here and delete the model, and then that would get rid of it as well. So that's another approach that you could have for that. But again, my email is Al, it's A-L, and you can email me over that file and we can talk some more about that. All right, thank you, David. Can you just copy the same tool path and change the work offset in the edit menu? Yeah, you absolutely can do that. So let's see, Chris, when we're talking about doing multiple setups, this setup location here, we have this feature. If we wanted to do this feature in another work offset, you could come here, you could say copy, you could say paste. We can paste it with the same depth values. We could reselect our boundary here. So let's go to this one, which is a good point. You could reselect that boundary there, and then you could go to your posting and change this from work offset 1 to work offset 2. So that is probably a quicker workflow for that. So Christopher brings up a good point. So that way you could be within one setup. You could have the same 0 position on all of them, and then you could just copy and paste that feature and put it into the next work offset. Okay, so that is a good point there. Let's see here if there's anything else towards the top. All right, so let's go down towards the bottom. All right, using your current file, if you want to do work on the bottom side next, how do you go about setting up a new 0? Okay, so I got this part model here. Let me turn down my transparency of my stock. Okay, so we'll turn that down. I have this part model here. So I machined in this setup and I've done some work. So now what I want to do is flip the part over and then, you know, deck it off or whatever the case might be. So what I'll do is create another setup for it generally. So I'll do additional setup, insert setup. Okay, so now I have another setup. From here, I can right click, edit the setup, and then I can pick my new origin. Now when I pick my new origin, I pick the same corner or wherever the position may be, okay? But I need to align my coordinate system. You can see Z is facing the wrong direction. So what we would do is swap the Z axis. You just push these arrows here, will swap the axis. So we can swap the Z, but swapping the Z doesn't get us where we need to be. What we need to do is swap the Y, and that way we have X going this way, Y going this way, Z going that way. Now within this setup here, we can go ahead and program whatever features that we may need. Okay, so Larry, if that makes sense, let me know. Do you have any Kirk Weiss files you are willing to share for simulation? You know, the thing with that, I mean, that's a really good point as far as files that you may want to use in simulation. I've been downloading more of them from the internet. A lot of these companies, you can just literally type this stuff into Google here, and you know, you can come in here and pick up, you know, some of these files. They usually have a couple of different formats that you can choose from. So that's really the easiest way to do this, is you can just come in here and you can download this file, 2D, 3D, yeah, so you can come in here and download this file as needed. So that's sometimes they require you to create an account, but it's really easy to come in here and do it. Now the other thing I recommend for you guys is grab CAD.com. This is another really good resource for you. They have all kinds of files here. So if you're a new user, or you know, someone just getting started and you want some test files to work off of, this is a great place to go. They have all kinds of files to work with. Let's see here. If you go to BobCAD, I have a bunch of files that I put in here as well, so different things that I've worked on that you guys can download and be able to work with, files that I've done other webinars on. So this is another great resource for you guys as well if you're not taking advantage of it. I really like GrabCAD. It's a really cool place. All right, so hopefully that answers that question. Let's see here. Is the only way I can verify the collision or the position of the piece on the table is only in simulation? I don't think, Humberto, I don't think that's the only way. If you know the limits of your machine based off of your work offset, you could sketch out a rectangle or something along those lines. But graphically, yes, in simulation is where you would need to go. Don, we appreciate you being with us here today. Okay, Nick has a question. Is it possible to save the machined part after simulation for referencing or to make a step file of the part? Great question, Nick. Very good. So what we're going to do here, and guys, I know we're at the 2 o'clock mark. If you got to go, I do understand. If you can stick around, I'm going to answer a couple more questions here. Let me do a quick break so I can cut the video at the 1 hour mark. So give me just 1 second here. You know, again, I appreciate everybody spending some time with me here today. I look forward to seeing you in the 2018 webinars. And as always with BobCAD, you have fewer steps, better cuts, and more profit. Look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Thank you.